Well, hello and welcome to the Speakeasy. My name is Paul Feasy, and today I'm joined by...
It's Glenn Scrivener. Hello, Paul Feasy.
Hello, Glenn Scrivener. You right?
Yeah, doing really well, thank you. Yeah.
Good. Feeling okay? Had a good week?
Had a really good week. We had a guest service at our church on Sunday, which was brilliant. There's a nationwide kind of missionary thing called A Passion for Life, which apparently 750 churches have signed up to.
Right.
And it generally happens in the spring, and you put on sort of evangelistic events to invite people to. But in our church, we've just decided, hey, we've got this thing that we already do. It rolls around every Sunday. We put on these things like 104 times a year. It's called church, so let's just invite people. And the church was packed. There's loads of people inviting folks, and I got to preach, and yeah, it was brilliant. Brilliant time. Yeah.
Nice. What were you preaching on?
So John 10, so I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. So 15 words, but there's so much in there, and we got to show how Jesus is your shepherd. So say to Jesus, please lead me. But he lays down his life like a lamb. So, Jesus, you're my lamb. Please forgive me. So, that kind of a simple message. But, it seemed to come home with a lot of people and had some incredible conversations with people afterwards. And, yeah, so I was talking recently to a guy whose whole job is marketing and fundraising and sort of getting your message out to market, as it were.
Yep.
And he always, deals with other charities where their job is not really to produce a lot of stuff like we produce a lot of stuff. And he said, the problem with Speak Life is not that there's not content to share. It's we never bother to actually market it. We never bother to actually get it out there. We just make it and make some more. And so he's sort of trying to get us to think, how do we help people to know about all the great resources that we've got? And I thought to myself, that's very much like the church. Like the church is totally in that situation. We've got great product. We've got stuff that we keep pumping out every Sunday. And I just wonder whether, when we try to do stuff, let's do a midweek pub quiz or whatever. And I don't know, we've already mobilized 30 volunteers to make the Sunday thing happen. And we've got this well-oiled machine and it kind of rolls around and we know what we're doing on a Sunday. But when we think about evangelistic events, we think, let's do this totally different thing where we've got to drum up 15 different volunteers and do this other thing that is not just the proclamation of the words. So I'm a big fan, as you can tell, to just invite people to church, build it and they will come. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Great. Well, good that you had so many people turn up.
Yeah, it has been good. Yeah, how's your weekend been?
Good, I think. Just trying to remember. Yeah, we went to Chartwells. Have you ever been to Chartwells?
No,
National Heritage.
Okay.
It was Churchill's house.
Although
we spent most of it, we didn't really get anywhere near the house. We decided to go and find all the little play areas. But it is not buggy friendly, as I discovered.
Okay.
Pushing the buggy around.
So Libby was getting quite
it was very, very muddy. And and so it definitely took a few of us to push up the hill. So
the other four of you just Libby just smiling.
It was a nice day out, but if you're going with the buggy, don't bother, basically.
Don't
Go somewhere else. It's not very good.
Yeah.
But it's a nice place. So,
okay. Not a great advertisement for Chartwells.
No, if I'm honest. But, anyway.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about copyright and the kingdom. That was a kind of title on our thumbnail there. So you might have seen that Ed Sheeran has been in the news recently as he faces a lawsuit in regards to the 2017 song Shape of You. Shape of You was number one for 14 weeks in the UK back in 2017 and became the best-selling song of the year around the world. You probably know it because it was just everywhere. Couldn't get away from it. However, Sheeran's faced a lawsuit brought against him by songwriters Sammy Chokri, hope I'm saying that right, and Ross O'Donoghue, who say the hook line of the song, or one of the hook lines of the song, resembles part of a song that they wrote called Oh Why in 2015. Now, Sheeran has a history of borrowing elements from other songs, but he claims to acknowledge when he does that and ensure that the relevant clearances are got from the different parties. But despite that, this isn't the first time he's faced lawsuits. So he faced legal proceedings over the song Photograph, which it was claimed shared the same chorus melody as a 2011 single called Amazing by X Factor winner Matt Cardle. And that led to the writers of the song receiving a share of the song's royalties and a £4 million lump sum.
Wow.
in an out-of-court settlement,
which is chump change for Ed Sheeran.
Just had it in his back pocket. Yeah. And he's also faced legal action over another song in 2017, The Rest of Our Life, which was settled later that year, but it's unclear what the payout was. And he's also still involved in an ongoing dispute with, I think it's the estate of Marvin Gaye, over similarities between the song Thinking Out Loud and Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On. Sheeran's not the only one who's kind of been accused of these kind of things, and he probably won't be the last. And the question really is, where's the line between being influenced by other songs and plagiarizing them? So we'll have a kind of think about that. We'll just say that if you're kind of tuning in, do say hi in the comments, let us know you're here, and hopefully this is a kind of discussion that maybe people will have some thoughts on. We're going to play some clips of bits as well.
Yeah, we've got a game coming.
We've got a little game coming to do with this as well. So if you've got thoughts on the whole copyright, how far is too far, what's a copy, what's not, what's just influence, let us know, because we'd love to kind of hear you guys chipping in.
What's the name of our game again, Thomas? What's it called?
It is called What? Sorry, who owns that tune?
Who owns that tune?
What is your favorite thing? No, who owns that tune? And the answer is Jesus. Okay, so
it all belongs to Jesus.
It all belongs to Jesus. Everybody is derivative. Okay, we're all just copying anyway. Get over yourself.
Right. So that's your opinion on
that's
the whole
my
thing.
opinion
You're
on the whole thing.
You reckon there should be no copyright on these things, really? Anyway,
pretty much. Yeah.
Just like.
There's such a thing as Creative Commons license, which we're kind of familiar with. If you can produce, for instance, soundtracks and put them as a Creative Commons license, or you can take photographs and put them as a Creative Commons license, where you basically say, "Hey guys, if you want to use this, please credit me."
Yep.
And that's the thing, right? Because I just wonder whether if it is indeed the case that Ed Sheeran has ripped off Sami Chakri? No, what's his name?
Sami Chakri.
Sami Chakri. Yeah. If that is the case, then what would be the biggest bump to his career is not that Sami Chakri is litigious and has taken Ed Sheeran to court, but that Ed Sheeran kind of gives him a bump and gives him a shout out and like directs his very impressive fan base towards a Sami Chakri song.
Yep.
Whereas I just don't think the litigation route is the way to go, and it certainly does come across as it could be people just having a go. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the other thing that people have leveled at Ed Sheeran is that he does sometimes say, "Hey, I took a bit from this song," often when it's a kind of bigger artist. But these kind of unknown artists, like Sami Chakri, because we're not familiar with the works of Sami Chakri, are we really?
So much so that I call him Sami Chakri.
we don't even know how to say his name. They get kind of trampled over, so he won't. They'll say he wouldn't really reference those people. And then there's also there's been the inference that sometimes not just people like Ed Sheeran, but big stars know they can do this because they can throw a lot of money, or their record company can throw a lot of money at a lawsuit. That the little guy who really is just, scraping a living, maybe the odd gig here and there, doesn't have the money to fight that. And so you can just stamp them down. Yeah. A bit like we had that in the post office case, didn't we?
Maybe.
Like we've. Yeah. So you think the post office were the good guys? Is what you're saying? Is what I'm getting from this. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we listen to the two sort of side by side? So it's literally two vowel sounds. That is what is at issue in this case. And so if I share it from my computer, which is kind of buffering at the moment, I don't know.
And people can have a listen and let us know. So what do you think when you listen to it? Do you think, he's lifted that?
Yeah. This is what I call the Old MacDonald part of both of their songs, where we just go into vowels. Yes, not sure if that's going to work.
It did come through.
Did it come through yours?
It came through.
Okay, so
it's
just my computer.
Yeah, hopefully. Did you get that at home, guys?
So the Sami Chakri is O-Y, 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 whereas the Ed Sheeran is O-Y, O-Y, O-Y.
O-I, it's O-I, isn't it?
O-I. Oh, who's O-I?
Ed Sheeran is saying it's O-I because he's saying O-I, 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 right. I'm in love with your body.
Right. Whereas Sami Chakri, you can see him kind of looking very pained. O-Y, 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 O-Y. And I just think, come on, let's have them both. Why don't we have them both? Let's not fight. Let's just build on one another, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm willing to say that, in my opinion, like, I mean, obviously they're very, very similar, but it's tenuous enough in my mind to be kind of, these are just, I wouldn't even have said what Ed is singing there is even a lyric. I thought that was just a kind of vocal riff.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
So when he said, "Oh, it's not OY, it's OI," because the line is, "Oh, I'm in love with your body," he said it wouldn't make sense if I said why. I didn't even think it was part of that line. I thought it was just a vocal.
It's not the bit
thing
that you
going
remember
on.
from the song either. It's not like the most important parts.
No. But interestingly, Ed Sheeran, there's footage of him talking about this song, and he's not talking about this section. He actually talks about another line in the song, and he says, I knew the song No Scrubs by TLC, which if you're a certain generation, you will probably know as well.
No Scrubs,
from kind of late 90s, late 90s Scrubs, yeah.
The passenger side of my best friend's ride.
Yeah.
Trying to holler at me. Or
Yeah,
me. Well,
at
anyway,
me,
something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
And he says, I'd heard that, and so I was trying to riff off that. And so there is a kind of bit where it's very obvious that he's lifted that out. And therefore, the writers of No Scrubs are credited on the song Shape of You. Now, presumably they get a bit of the royalties from that as well. Now, what I couldn't quite ascertain was, I've seen Ed Sheeran saying, oh yeah, I lifted that from there and did this. I've seen another bit where someone had said, it was pointed out that this had happened, and they were added to the credits. In the sense of like, I deliberately lifted this, and until someone actually pointed it out, I decided I'd pocket all the money until someone said I had to give it to them as well.
Right.
You know, so I'm a bit like...
Yeah. A bit like Vanilla Ice with Under Pressure. It was only after Brian May came to him with lawyers that he then decided to stump up, and he paid them £4 million or $4 million, I think, 30 years ago to get the Under Pressure. So he now basically owns the Under Pressure song, and now he gets royalties for Under Pressure. Right.
So when you're listening to Queen, you're funding Vanilla Ice. That's what you're doing.
Take a look in the mirror.
His music career is being funded by Queen fans.
He's worth a lot of money. It's funny. It's one of those like lies on the internet that comes around. Have you ever been told that Vanilla Ice is so broke he works in a bike shop in LA?
Yeah, I've heard that.
But no, he's worth millions and millions and millions of pounds. He earns $400 million a year just for Ice Ice Baby.
I thought we said 400,000, not 400 million a year.
Oh, what did I say? 400,000. Oh, sorry. I meant 400,000.
yeah, 400,000 a year, which still isn't to be sniffed at.
It is
not doing anything anymore. You know, just letting it. Passive income, basically.
So basically, using Queen and David Bowie is the best thing he ever did. You know, just to stop and collaborate, and listen.
And now we listen.
Yeah.
But see, there's some of the difference there. I think is that we all know, like, if you hear a cover or a clear sample,
right?
A sample is literally they've taken the sound out of something else and they've used it in their production, and generally people have cleared that.
Yeah.
Or they know that there's a certain amount of royalties that will go to someone else because of that. Except if you count Kanye West.
Yeah.
So Kanye West, I think, famously he took Daft Punk's
Faster,
Stronger, that one,
whatever,
and he sampled that. And I don't think he asked them, and Daft Punk were very unhappy about it. And I think Kanye's thoughts were basically, I'm Kanye West, I don't need to ask anybody for anything. So
I'm William Shakespeare, Walt Disney. Here's a question that we can ask people in the comments: is when you hear dum 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 dum, are you disappointed when you hear Under Pressure, or are you disappointed when you hear All right, stop? To be honest, I quite like the Vanilla Ice.
I do quite like the Vanilla Ice one as well, actually, if I'm brutally honest. But yeah, so I think there's a difference, though, isn't there, when people cover something? Because a cover might be an identical cover almost, or it could be a very fresh take on something.
Yeah.
But no one in that case is saying, here's the thing I made entirely by myself.
Right.
I think the issue is when someone is saying, or someone is not saying, they're just going, I've heard something, and I think that's really good. I'm going to pass it off as my own to make money from that at the expense of this person.
Yes. I completely agree that is the problem. And I think copyright did not exist 300 years ago. Like, pretty much at the very beginning of the 18th century was when the first sort of copyright laws came in, and they were only for sort of 14 years. They weren't for, much longer. And if you wanted to renew copyright, beyond 14 years, you'd have to do it again and again. And I think it's a real sign of expressive individualism. This hyper individualistic Western Enlightenment idea that I am a kind of an individual all by myself, and I can have all these novel ideas, and I descend into myself. There's a sort of romanticism, really, about descending into myself and having my own bold ideas, and not being a part of a tradition, not being part of a community, but rather locking myself away and having my own blessed thoughts that are sort of mine. I want to present them to the world as just mine. Whereas prior to 1700, whether it's literature, all these authors would just naturally write a line, and you get this if you read John Calvin, who's writing in the 16th century, he'll just drop in a line. He doesn't put inverted commas around it, but if you knew that it was Cyril, well, that's Cyril, and if you knew that it was Basil the Great, that's Basil the Great, and he just drops in quotes, and he doesn't even footnote them. He doesn't even say who it is, but he kind of expects the reader to think, I'm part of a great tradition. It's mashup culture. I think really interestingly, YouTube has reinvented something that is the norm all around the world and down through history, which is mashup culture. And it's just hey, I take that from here, put them together, wang. But I think as you say, the real problem is secretly doing a mashup of this and that, and then passing it off as your unique genius, and then getting very rich off it. Yeah. That's the big problem,
Yeah.
But the idea that, but I think modern copyright is really problematic in that it criminalizes most people most of the time. Billions of people are breaking the law every day. They don't even know it, and they don't even know why they're breaking the law. And if you explain to them how they're breaking the law in any number of ways, they wouldn't be able to tell you. It's illegal to change a single word of a song on a PowerPoint presentation at church. How many churches were breaking the law this Sunday?
Yep.
It's illegal to make copies of anything that was on broadcast TV. It's illegal to make a copy of a CD. Remember those? But
yeah.
But technically
ripping your CDs,
ripping
to
a
a
CDs,
computer, which we all did
for your own, even just for your own personal use.
Yeah.
That's totally illegal. And it gets to the point where, no matter what website you're on, what software you use, there's just that little button that's the whatever button, and you tick the whatever button. You have no idea what you've just, said yes to, because and who wins out of all this? The lawyers. The lawyers are making a mint out of this stuff, and I think it all does boil down to people being very precious and unbiblical about thinking that there is anything new under the sun. So, Steve Jobs is famous for saying that good artists copy, great artists steal. And that's shocking. And then he was asked, where does that saying come from? And he said Picasso, but no one can find Picasso saying it. And then other people say it's James Joyce. Other people say it's William Faulkner. It's just the great irony that no one knows the source of this quote, great artists steal. But it's true. It's we live in a mashup world. This is totally a mashup world from Genesis 1 onwards. And I think we're kidding ourselves if we think an Ed Sheeran or anyone is an individual genius who can launch onto the world their brave new ideas.
Well, you're not going to get any arguments from me about Ed Sheeran being a genius. As someone who teaches guitar, he's the bane of my life.
Why? Doesn't he get people interested in guitar?
Yeah, but to the most mediocre level of ability,
right? Yeah.
It's just I'm being a bit of a snob about it. I'm just
sure.
I'm here he is. He's got his 4 chords, which he's stolen from someone else.
They're good chords.
Yeah.
They've done
the
the job.
thing is, I do always say to all my students as well, I'm you don't need to be technically proficient to write good songs, because there's so many songs out there which use the same chords round and round and round. And once you've got a few basic chords, you can write great songs.
Yeah.
But and there's and I do a thing with them where when I've taught them certain chords, when they've got a few chords under their belt, I go, right, here's the 4-chord song. And I say, right, which of these songs, a big list, I've got the chord progression. I say, out of all these songs, which ones do you know?
Yeah.
And I just say, right, these are all the same chords.
Yeah.
And you say that once you've got these 4 chords down, you can play all these songs.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's the Pachelbel canon.
Yeah.
Chords, isn't it?
Well, even just the other day, a kid wanted to learn this Love Me Again John Newman song, which if you don't know it, you'll recognize it if you hear it, but I'm not going to sing it for you. And he didn't know what the chords were, and I was working it out, and I said, "Oh, this sounds really familiar." And it's the same chords as "Get Lucky" by Daft Punk. Now the songs sound radically different, but it's although they're in a different key, the chords same basic progression.
Yeah.
So I'm there going, "Oh, this sounds familiar," and I'm going, "Oh yeah, up all night to get lucky," you know. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I love that song," and I'm like, "Well, it's just the same thing." You said you could mash it up. I said,
Right.
Work out a way to mash it up.
Well, exactly.
So,
isn't it ironic that today the producer who produced "Let Me Go There,"
which was one of our videos.
Which is one of our videos. Our Christmas video from a couple of years ago was "Let Me Go There," and I wrote a song to it with the 4 chords. Right? And our producer Michael Tinker put it together, and we got a brilliant vocalist, and we made the song. And then a few weeks ago, my sister was just listening to random songs on Spotify, and she said, "Have you heard this? Listen in at 2 minutes 38." And I will play to you these 2 songs at their relevant places, and see if you can spot any similarities whatsoever in these totally independent creations. There's the sun flying off to Earth. Those are the famous 4 chords. Okay, now I'm trying to come out of that. There we go. Stop.
It has stopped.
Oh, it has stopped.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, all right. So that's our 4 chords. Now, I thought that our song had come out later than this song, but it turns out my producer Michael Tinker says no. Actually, we got in there first before Forest Black came out with this song. Different key, slightly different tempo, but. She'll love you if you love her right then. She'll love you if you love her. She'll love you if you love her right then. Yeah.
So at that point, you've done a complete about face on your original thing. Glenn's coming for you.
Forest Black.
You'll be hearing from my solicitors.
You better lawyer up, Forest
We've
Black.
got a GoFundMe page now to fund our lawsuits.
And, you know, there are these four magical chords, and, you know, those are just 4 notes over the top. And what are the odds that there must be another 50 songs that use that kind of melody over the top of those 4 chords?
I suppose, but some of it as well is to do with, I mean, it's not just the melody is one thing, isn't it? And people often, because you can't copyright a chord progression because it's so common.
Yep.
And people will say the melody is the thing. But even within a melody, you're going to find, let's say you're playing over an A minor chord, you're not going to be surprised to find notes from the A minor chord in the melody, you know, A, C, and E. And then it changes to a G chord. You won't be surprised to find G's, B's, and D's being sung over the top of that because it's in the chord. So there's always going to be that element of the melody is led by the chords anyway. But it depends, you know, I don't know exactly what the notes are in what is being played there. Are all those notes kind of what you'd expect to be hearing, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I was going to say, is it quite a generic thing, you know, without meaning that in a negative sense, but is it just very much following what's going on there? Yeah. But I guess some of it comes down to is it not just the same melody and things, but what about the orchestration of things? And sometimes, I mean, actually, that is remarkably similar as well.
Very.
Are we doing okay with cameras? We're getting a bit of a flicker on this one coming up. I don't know if people are seeing that at home.
Oh, we're back. And we're back.
Again. Oh, and we're gone again.
Yeah, and we're gone.
It's just a loose cable. Hopefully you can still hear us chatting away there. Yeah, so the lawsuit begins soon. And
it will be. But yeah,
I take the £4 million lump sum.
Yeah,
that's
I think you're right. It can't just be a chord progression. It can't just be a melody, and it can't just be kind of orchestration. It's got to be like all those things together. But I think we've just seen an example of those 3 things coming together like so similarly, and those 2 songs coming out within like a few months of one another. So that's always going to happen, isn't it?
And what do you think? Because there were some other people who've been accused of this,
Yep.
who'd also been. I think Dua Lipa was recently pulled up on this about her song "Levitating," and she was kind of pulled up by another group called Article Sound System, who said that her song was very, very similar. Should we see the clip?
Yeah.
So this is Rick Beato, a YouTuber who's kind of comparing these two songs.
Let's check out the similarities. Let me play the Dua Lipa song first. Oh, that's actually both songs playing at the same time. I actually sped up the Live Your Life song so that'd be the same tempo. But as you can hear, here's Live Your Life. This is Dua Lipa.
So there we go. I mean, there's a brilliant moment at the beginning there where Rick's like, "I'll just play you this one." Oh, actually, that's both of them at the same time. I mean, those are so similar.
Yeah. Yep.
To my mind, if that's not a copyright issue, nothing is.
Nothing is.
Like, because even it's not just the orchestration is very similar, like the rhythm of it, the melody is basically the same, even the rhyme scheme is
the words
similar, you know, like
all night starlight.
Yeah, but then there have been people saying, you know, again, that's just these are very common progressions of chords.
Yep.
You know, the rhythm is a common kind of Charleston type feel over the top. So where'd you
Yeah.
go with it? Like,
Yeah. And again, one of the places I want to go is back in history. And, you know, so Bach was always like taking, like he'd take the Ave Maria and he'd write a cantata underneath it and sort of mash these things up. And, you know, although for him it'd be the Ave Redemptor or whatever the Protestant version is. But you know, and you get this cantus firmus thing, which is just you take one melody and you add a different melody, and this is always kind of happening. But if it is indeed the case that Dua Lipa like heard that song beforehand and said, "Oh, I could nick that," that's not on in terms of passing it off as your own. Lee Fernie's made some excellent contributions already in the top chat. He said, "Imagine a world with no plagiarism. It's easy if you try." And then he clarified, he footnoted his top chat. If you could provide references in your top chat, he then says, lifted from Milton Jones.
so that's good because Milton will now receive some of the royalties for that joke.
Yes.
So that's okay.
He will
It's all
receive
credited.
15% of your laughter. You can send that to him. Also in the top chat, Jennifer Lynn Smith says, when a songwriter thinks up a melody, it's just not always going to be never thought up before. Yes, two people can randomly think up similar melodies. Absolutely. And then Lee applies this to scholarship. He says, how does the relaxed view of we're all just a reflection of our influences fare when we get to academic scholarship and biblical scholarship in particular? There was a recent scandal with Peter O'Brien, whose books were withdrawn, and John MacArthur has faced recent accusations. And again, I think the problem is, first of all, we're trying to inhabit a world in which everything is everyone's own special little creation. Like, if John MacArthur has study assistants who do I don't know the exact details of this, but I know that sometimes pastors get their study assistants to basically take a sermon transcript of theirs and pretty it up, and actually a whole bunch of different people have done the hard work,
Right.
and John MacArthur's name goes on the cover. If that's what's going on here, again, the problem is that we are thinking that this knowledge is coming from the genius of John MacArthur, and he is uniquely contributing to this, as opposed to being far more laissez-faire about, hey, there's a community of people working on this, and I don't need to take credit. So I think that's trying to pass things off as your own is already the problem.
Yeah, and there's been discussions to do with that in regards to preaching, hasn't there? Like,
Yes.
whether some people have been accused of just lifting other people's sermons entirely and preaching them.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know how we feel about that. You know, if you've just lifted,
Yeah.
I mean, because at the end of the day, though, I mean, all of our sermons are in some way built up off other people's work.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know, and I will sometimes listen to sermons. You know, if I'm generally, if I'm really stuck here,
Yeah.
I'll go and find other people's sermons on the same passages and listen and go. I'm like, oh yeah, actually that's really helpful. And you might lift some illustrations or you might lift some ideas out of it. And what I wouldn't do is say at the front, by the way, just to let you know, this came from so-and-so, this came from so-and-so. Now, if someone came up to me afterwards and said, oh, great illustration on the thing, I'd say, oh, great, oh, yeah, I nicked it.
Yeah.
You know, I always say that. If someone says to me and I took it, oh, it wasn't mine, I said I got it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go out of my way also to footnote every single thing because everything would be footnoted. Like,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know.
I've had the experience of actually watching and being surprised. I remember wanting to watch a sermon on the Trinity. And I was watching this guy who I was sort of vaguely aware of, but I'd never heard any of his sermons. And he just starts the sermon with, I'm going to mainly be quoting Glenn Scrivener. No, I think he called me Scrivener. Glenn Scrivener. I was like, what? This is the weirdest thing. I'm hearing my own sermon kind of preached back to me. And he had no compunction about doing it. And I think that's cool. Like get a better source than me. But if you're just upfront about sort of saying that, then why not?
Do you think the only reason, I wonder whether people get funny about it, like people think, oh, he preached my sermon and now everyone thinks he's really good. And like, is it just because you're not really not so bothered about the message, it's just you wanted the accolade of it yourself. Like,
exactly. And what's that hackneyed quote? It's amazing what you can get done if you don't care who gets the credit.
Right.
I think that's totally true. And like, as an Anglican, at the end of the Book of Common Prayer, there are literally all these homilies. Like some of them were written by Archbishop Cranmer and some of them written by others. But they were literally, because they didn't trust the clergy, so they were just literally word for word, you can get up and preach this sermon on justification. And you would just read out the sermon. But again, we bristle at that because we want the expressive individualism and we want the genius of the individual. And it's like...
It's funny though, because people get very funny about you mustn't copy other people's work, like you mustn't copy other people's preachers, but you also mustn't make up stories. That's what. But then it's funny. I preached the other day, and I had quite a big story that I ran through the whole thing, and literally the first 8 minutes was this story, and then I dropped back to it later, and the whole thing is entirely made up, and it all came off the back of because we had this conversation here where Nate said. People often say, don't they? You see people doing it online all the time. Can anyone think of a film where this happens and there's yada, yada, yada to get an illustration for their sermon? Yeah. And it's like, well, what is a film? It's just a made-up story. So why don't you just make up your own story that actually fits better, you know? Yes. And of course, what I didn't say at the beginning, this is a made-up story. I sold it as a kind of, I just launched into the story, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't say, like, this is real, and I didn't say this is fake. I just did the story. And someone came up to us after and said about it, and I said, oh, yeah, that's just a story. But... whatever you do, someone's going to complain. Like basically, like
I love the story of John Chapman, who is a massive influence on a lot of different evangelists all over the world, including Rico Tice and others in the UK. But he was once preaching at St Helens Bishopsgate, and at the end of the sermon, someone came up to him and said, I really enjoyed your sermon, but why did you feel that you had to steal Rico's story? And Chapo just said, Rico, that bum!
Brilliant.
Who's stealing from who? And it's okay, no copyright in the kingdom.
No, brilliant. Well, should we have a go at this game that you've got lined up for us,
yeah.
Thomas? I think it'd be good. We're going to put our headphones on to go through this challenge.
Fingers on buzzers at home.
I don't even know, what is the sort of... do we have to buzz in? How's it going to work?
Hello, yeah, well, welcome to Who Owns That Tune? And the goal is very simple, really. I'm going to play a song, if possible, identify it, and then guess why it is accused of plagiarism. So what's the original, basically, that it's accused of stealing from? Oh. And everyone listening, you're welcome to throw in a guess in the comments. And,
yeah, please do.
Yeah, so shall we kick off with question 1?
Okay.
My Lord.
Okay, so...
I really want to see you.
My Sweet Lord, George Harrison, yeah?
Correct. So why is that accused of plagiarism? So these are genuine cases, by the way.
I don't know, because,
Any
I mean,
ideas?
it would have to be something from before that. And that's relatively early in my mind. And
So what is the song?
it was My Sweet Lord,
Yes.
George Harrison.
Yes. Okay.
Can you not hear it?
Yeah, no. But Okay.
I think I might win this round. I get a point for the song, right?
Yes. Was it by Paul McCartney? I don't know.
Yeah, stole it from another Beatle. I couldn't tell you what it was accused of taking though, from where.
Sure. This is actually quite a tricky one. Start with a tricky one.
Start hard, get harder.
A song called "He's So Fine" by the Chiffons.
Big fan of the Chiffers.
So, would you like to hear the original?
Yes. Yes.
One with the wavy hair. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna make it mine.
That feels a bit tenuous to me, if I'm honest. Have you got your computer on mute? Is that the issue?
No. It's but my computer's just buffering. It's just all buffer. Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think at home, people? Do you think that's...
Doesn't sound from the 3-second snatch I heard. Didn't sound anything like it.
No, I mean, very vaguely, but
So we're calling that an unfair
I'd say that's unfair.
accusation.
That's unfair.
Okay, here's a more interesting one. So first of all, identify the song.
So what's it called? Can I Rule the World? Is it that?
Michael would love this one.
So it's called Viva La Vida,
It's
Coldplay from 2008. Any ideas what that's allegedly copying?
Is it a more famous song than the other Origin song that you gave to us?
Is it He's So Fine by the Chiffers?
I'll give you a clue. It's a
Is it
guitarist.
Mambo number 5?
So it's actually Joe Satriani.
Okay.
Okay, guitar
for,
player.
a
Yeah,
song
yeah.
called "If I Could Fly" from 2004. Let's have a listen.
Yep, I can hear that.
Wow. Take him to court. Sue him for every penny, Joe.
Plagiarism.
Is there a way of doing it the other way around? If the song on which it's meant to be based is the less famous one, and then we pick what the famous one is, or no?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to mess with the rules of the game.
No. I think the ones from now on will be like that. So,
Okay.
All right.
Yes, that's a good point. Okay, so this is round 3. So first of all, see if you can identify the song.
Take the dead out of the sea and the darkness from the yards.
Lana Del Rey, is it?
It is. Well
Lana Del
done.
Rey?
It's
I'm
Lana
down with the
Del
kids.
Rey, Get
10
Free.
years ago.
From 2017. And does that remind you of perhaps a more
Is it-
well-known song?
It's like something like He Shot Me Down or something, Nancy Sinatra or something along those lines, or Bang Bang, My Baby Shot Me Down, or...
You might be surprised, actually. 90s.
Oh.
Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time.
So I'll play you the song from the people who accused Lana of stealing it.
But I'm a creep.
I'm a weirdo.
So Radiohead's Creep. Well, Radiohead wouldn't be in a position to sue over that, would they? Given that it's a lift of something else.
Sitting
pretty
on the
much.
dock of the bay.
Yeah.
That is the Sitting on the Rock of the Bay chords, isn't it?
Is it sitting on the dock of the bay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or is it The Air That I Breathe, the Hollies?
Oh,
Is it that one?
As
I don't know. It's one of those.
Well, very good, Paul. So the irony in this is Radiohead accused Lana Del Rey of stealing that, but they themselves were also accused of stealing it from this song, "The Air That I Breathe" by the Hollies, and it's kind of the bit that's used in the bridge of Radiohead. The da, 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 da,
Yep.
da. So yeah, let's have a listen.
No cigarettes, no sleep, no light,
Yeah, same.
no
mean, that one's been around for a long time in terms of people talking about the similarities between them.
But like, they're such different songs, you know. And like, can't we
yeah.
have them all? Can we please have them all? Like, who is it who sits back and says, "No, we can only have that first one"? And anyone who tries to do anything new, like, no, shoot them down, and it's ridiculous. Let's have more songs, you know.
And this is our final one. So this one didn't go to court, but this is just something that people have noticed and accused. So first of all, identify the tune.
Another one bites the dust.
We know that, don't we?
Another one bites the dust.
So any ideas who else has done similar?
No, definitely. I've heard someone else do it.
Surely, like, loads of people must have lifted the bass line for some kind of sample. Vanilla Ice, does he own it? Nothing comes to mind specific, though. You know, I can't think of a particular one.
So it's actually the Chiffons.
It all comes back to the Chiffons.
No, it's actually this.
Oh, I have heard this, yeah. Is that Good Times? Chic.
It is, yeah.
But
Good
that
Times.
sounds remarkably similar. The bass line on that is very similar to Sugar Hill Gang, isn't it? A hip.
Oh,
a hip,
right.
Which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
basically the same bass line, is it not?
Rapper's
have them
Delight.
all.
Rapper's Delight, that's the one.
Yeah, so I think Rapper's Delight, they did actually sample the bass line from Chic, and they kind of
Remarkably
acknowledged
similar
that.
then.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Queen, it's a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
And it didn't go to court, though.
No, it didn't.
No.
They've played nicely over
Played
that one.
nice.
But like, let's just have them all, please. Can we just, and let's not get so hung up on things. And I wonder, like, a thought I've had today is like, could there be a platform where, like, someone like Sammy Shakri can go and sort of and say, I think my song is very much influencing Ed Sheeran's, and in the court of public opinion, you know, he would get a hearing, he'd get a bit of a bump, and maybe the court of public opinion would come out on his side and kind of say, yeah, we like you, and some of Ed Sheeran's fans would get to hear his stuff, which, you know, is a win for him. But yeah, I'm just not into this whole, this is my special creation, and this is what's earned me millions and millions of pounds, and then other people, of course, what are they going to want to do? They're going to want to sue the life out of the guy who gets famous by it.
Yeah. Well, fair enough.
You know, people aren't that special, is my point. Ed Sheeran's not that special. Dua Lipa's not that
Obviously.
special. But, you know.
But, you know, watch the papers for the Let Me Go There lawsuit coming soon. So
There could be money in it, so I might be turning on a dime on that one, but we'll see.
cool. One thing we've been chatting about then for the last few weeks as part of our Lent series has been the Apostles' Creed. So we've kind of been taking a chunk every week, haven't we? I think I lose track, we've done 2 chunks so far.
Yep.
This is the third
This is the
week
third.
now
Yep.
in Lent. So
Right.
we've just been taking a couple of lines from the Apostles' Creed each week and just having a bit of chat about them, really, and thinking, what are these? What do they mean? Now, I'm going to read out the first 2 chunks and today's chunk, because last time someone said, I don't really know the Apostles' Creed, so
Yeah.
it's worth kind of doing it. Is it more of an Anglican thing generally? I mean, obviously it didn't start out as an Anglican thing, but do mostly Anglicans use it?
Yeah, I
compared to other
mean,
people?
yeah, Anglicans have more creeds, and it was very much part of baptismal preparation, which was a Lenten thing, and you prepare your baptizands for baptism on Easter Sunday,
Right.
and this is kind of the summary of the doctrine that you're really delivering to the people.
Okay. So it starts off, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended to the dead. And that's where we're going to stop for now, because that was our last chunk there. From
A bit of a downer.
Yeah, going to stop there. Suffered under Pontius
Cliffhanger.
Pilate. Yeah. What will happen next? Tune in next week.
Yeah.
Suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He descended to the dead. So those are the kind of little lines we're looking at today. It struck me, kind of reading it, that I assume that when they say suffered under Pontius Pilate, they're really trying to ground the life and death of Jesus in a specific time.
The Pontius Pilate.
The Pontius
thing.
Pilate bit, that this is a,
Yeah.
you can say, Jesus was crucified, and actually it was a historic event. Pontius Pilate was the guy who was in charge of this region at the time. So it's a historical thing. It's not, just this kind of mythical
Yeah.
thing
Dream
time that could have happened anywhere or anywhen.
Yeah.
It's a very specific thing.
Yeah, we've noticed that before with the creeds. Like, you go to other religions, and if you sort of go to Islam, you hear all about a quite static God and a very busy humanity. So Allah's got his 99 names, and they're all about sort of his perfections. And then humanity are all about doing the stuff, going on the pilgrimages and the prayers and the fasting and that sort of thing. Or Buddhism, you've got your Four Noble Truths that are quite static truths, and then your Eightfold Path. And so again, its ultimate reality is static and humanity is busy. Whereas the Apostles' Creed is totally different. God is busy, God is the one doing things, and all we do is shut up and listen and believe stuff. And the story is a story that happens in our world. So God really, really descends down. And the named figure that we had prior to Pontius Pilate was the Virgin Mary. So there are two named humans in the Apostles' Creed, apart from Jesus. But the Virgin Mary, so you've got a teenage Jewish poor woman, and then you've got Pontius Pilate, who is a rich, powerful Roman man. And that sort of frames the story that Jesus really enters human history through the Virgin's womb and really dies under Pontius Pilate, the fourth governor of Judea. And so, yeah, it's really not dream time. This is really our history. God has left footprints on this earth. And then what's really being underlined so many times, he suffered, was crucified, died, was buried, descended to the dead. It's like 6 words that basically say down, 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 down. And the down and up language is brilliant in the Apostles' Creed. It's so simple, a child can understand this. It's, Jesus came down, 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 down. And then next week we'll find out that he rose, and up he kind of goes. But it's again part of this story that we're telling, and it is the maximally great story. You could not conceive of a greater story, because you could not have a higher figure, Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who descends to a deeper depth and then is raised again to a greater height in order to have a more enduring effect for more people on the planet. Like, it's just really... It's a little bit like in Ephesians 3, where it talks about how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Jesus. And you see how deep it goes, because he suffered, crucified, died, buried, descended to the dead. And it's also a very surprising thing. Again, when you sort of lay it next to Muslim statements of faith, they're like, so your God died? Like, what kind of God ends up on a cross? And, I once did a debate with an imam from Nottingham, and I sort of asked him, like, within Islam, is there anything that Allah has done to prove that he loves you? Like, has he actually shown up? Because, within Islam, you might go to paradise if you're a good Muslim, but Allah will not be in paradise. He doesn't even descend. He certainly doesn't descend to earth, and he would never descend to the cross. And I said, like, is there anything in Islam that Allah actually does in order to demonstrate love? And he said, well, there's this time when a woman goes to Muhammad, her husband treated her appallingly and divorced her illegitimately, but the law left her at a loose end. And then Muhammad received from Allah a special revelation that he could change the law of divorce. And that was a mercy to this woman. I'm like, wow. Talk about a compare and contrast. Like, Allah tweaked a little bit of legislation so that a woman could have a more fair divorce. And our God suffered, was crucified, died, was buried, he descended to the dead. And I sort of said to him, you know, if on the way to Friday prayers, you spot a 7-year-old girl who has fallen into a canal, right? But you're wearing your Friday best. Like, what are you going to do? We know what you're going to do. Like, you're going to dive into that canal no matter how dirty you get, right? And you're going to save that girl. And you'll arrive at the mosque disheveled and a hero. And everyone will praise you. And you know that is the right thing to do. And yet, does God do that? Or does God stay at a distance? And like, you know that the more glorious thing is actually to suffer, be crucified, died, be buried, descend to the dead.
Yeah.
Because it's a love story, you know? He's plumbing the depths, and that's what's beautiful about the creed. It's, you know, our God actually does stuff. Our God is not static. Our God is a central character. You know, the other thing I love thinking about with this is Darren Brown was once asked what the secret is of his magic.
Yep.
And he said, you know, so many other magicians, they're just like the Paul Daniels. He didn't mention Paul Daniels, but you know, the sort of magician that just flicks their fingers and the
Rabbit appears.
the
out of
rabbit
a hat.
appears out of a hat, or the flowers appear from nothing up the sleeve, and then boom. And it's all effortless. It's all click of the fingers. And he says what's uninteresting about that is that it's a God story that's being told. You know, because God, in Darren Brown's imagination, just effortlessly.
Deus Ex Machina, just
Right. Yeah. Deus Ex Machina, the God coming from outside the machine, just quickly fixes everything.
yeah.
And he said that's not very dramatically interesting. What's dramatically interesting is the hero story. And we all know what the hero story is. The hero story is that in weakness you descend into the pit and you fight the monster and you snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. And somehow through struggle you triumph. He said that's the story that really resonates with you. That's the story I try to do with my magic, not the God story. There. The hero story, you know? And you just listen to that and you just think, well, what if the hero story is the God story? What if the God story is the hero story? And the Apostles' Creed is like, here's the God story. It is the hero story.
Yep.
You know? And like, there's nothing better than this. This is just awesome. And so, like, and again, like you hear about creeds and you're like, oh, it sounds a bit dry and dusty.
Dusty, yep.
But my goodness, it's so radical. Because right at the heart of this creed, I don't know how many words there are in the creed, but I'm pretty sure descended to the dead is right at the center, which in ancient texts is the most important bit. It's the crux.
Right.
Well, in Latin, the word crux is cross.
Sure.
Right at the heart of our vision of God is he descended to the dead. It's stunning stuff. It's absolutely revolutionary. It's completely disruptive. It's utterly built our world. Little plug for The Air We Breathe, book coming out very soon. But
I've got a book coming out called The Oxygen We Inhale.
The Oxygen We Inhale.
I just came up with that myself, though. I don't know where it came from.
Lawyer up, Paul Feasy. I'm coming after you. That's fine. See, I'd be happy. I'd be happy for other people. I mean, I've ripped off Tom Holland, who ripped off Larry Seidentop, who ripped off all these other people. Like
Tom Holland couldn't even get his own name. He just stole it from Spider-Man.
think you'll find the historian came first, but yeah, never mind. But yeah. But in terms of a story being ripped off, like in one sense, all our stories are ripped off from this story. Like all the Marvel comics, like all the stories that the other Tom Holland, stars in are based on this. And in another sense, it's totally unparalleled, because in no other religion or philosophy is God himself taking this journey. And yet this is the Most High who is descending to such depths. So it's pretty beautiful stuff, I reckon.
Yeah, incredible what's in there, really, isn't it? For those of us who maybe say these creeds quite often, it's easy to just kind of gloss over them quite quickly, isn't it? And not to really think about some of those things. We're so familiar with the idea of the God who comes down, gets his hands dirty, that we kind of forget the radical nature of that to the society it was written in, and
Yeah, all pre-Christian and all non-Christian cultures find it a scandal, which is what the New Testament says it is. It's a stumbling block. It's a scandal. It's It's absolutely crazy. But the beautiful thing about the church service that we had on Sunday, at the end of it, there was a guy who is on the outside of Christian faith. He's been looking in for a long time. And I basically just said to him, look, John the Baptist, the first words he says of Jesus, behold the Lamb of God. Look at the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. And the whole of Christianity is basically you look and look and look at that sacrifice, the one on the cross. And you keep looking until you think that's ultimate. That's the best. That's the most incredible thing. That's glory. He is Lord. You keep looking at that. And I just said, and because of who it is and what he's there to do, he has descended in order to save us. It's the ultimate love story. You keep looking until you think there's nothing greater than this. And when you start to think that, you're becoming a Christian. And fascinatingly, as I was sort of saying that, somebody sort of interrupted and said, "Oh, would you like a biscuit? Would you like a biscuit?" And it was the best interruption actually, because I got to shut up for a second. And he got to think about it, and there were tears in his eyes when he said, "I've never thought about it like that. It is the great love story, isn't it?" I was like, "Well, you're so close to faith. Like, when you look there and you think that's what it looks like to be God, that's faith. That's it." And you just say, "I believe. Welcome to the club."
Great stuff. Great stuff. Well, we'll crack on with the next part of the Creed next week. We hope you found that helpful. And as always, if you've got more thoughts on either what we've talked about on the Creed or any of the bits we've chatted about to do with kind of copyright and stuff like that, do let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Maybe you've got other things, other songs you can think of that you can think have borrowed heavily from other places. But so let us know your suggestions, but also let us know what you think about these topics as well. And yeah, thanks, Glenn. Good chat.
Thank you, Paul, very much.
And we'll hopefully catch you guys again next week. Take care.
God bless.